Greetings, weary travelers, fellow gremlins, to episode 2 of Brain Hugs. With me today, I have Kayla. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Kayla. I am a small business owner and a YouTuber.
Woo! Fellow YouTuber. Yeah, well, thank you for joining. Super excited.
I'm super excited too.
Yeah, this is gonna be fun. First question. Pretty simple, but also like one of those questions where it's deceivingly simple, right? As much as you feel comfortable sharing, how are you doing?
I would say I'm doing pretty good right now. I have my ups and down days, but I feel like at this point in my life right now, I'm doing pretty good.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that. And, you know, absolutely, the ups and downs are such a real thing, especially when you reach those lows. You're just like, will I ever be happy again? Like, yes, I will. It'll be okay.
The other day, I was like so happy, and then the next day, I was so moody, and I'm like, what the heck?
I know, for real. I have so many days like that too.
Days.
I know. Actually, yesterday was kind of one of those days for me. I kept getting like so angry at like the most like obscure things. I was just like, probably hormonally things are happening, but at the same time, I was just like, I got to a point where I couldn't help but like laugh at myself because I was just like, I'm getting so mad at like, I don't know, what's something I got mad at? Like I kept running into things, you know, that's like a typical one. Or like, well, I was editing yesterday and I was just like, why isn't this working? And I just like wanted to punch my computer. Poor thing is just doing its best, but I was getting so mad.
Will definitely change my mood.
Yeah, no, getting upset at just the most like obscure things. And you just, well, I know for me, like I'll end up feeling really dumb about it too, because I'm just like, this is so like I shouldn't be this mad at this thing, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like guilty sometimes when I get mad over little things.
I feel that. Sometimes especially if another person is around you and you like, you get mad and then like maybe you take it out on them a little and you're like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean for that to happen. That wasn't nice. That's the worst too. Like I said, like even especially the smallest things like dishes in the sink or that. I keep trying to think of like what's a like really stupid thing yesterday that I got just like way too upset at. No, but I'm glad to hear that you're like today is a better day.
Today is a better day.
Which is good. Like I feel that too. Like my day is my day is kind of barely started because it's only about noon for me, but same thing for me. It's like, today's going pretty well so far. Oh, I can't tell you how many times when I was younger, especially, if one thing went wrong, like at the start of the day, it was like the entire rest of the day was just ruined. You ever dealt with that?
Oh, yeah, that was like during like the school period time, like high school, middle school. It ruined my whole day.
High school. This high school is not musicaling for me today.
Yeah, no.
I do not feel like singing and dancing. I just want to curl into a ball and cry instead.
Plus, I'm such a morning person, so it's like if something happens in the morning, then and I'm moody throughout the whole day, then I'm like, okay, now I'm just cranky.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I'm not so much a morning person. I'm more of a night person, so you can imagine in the mornings how much less happy I was. Although honestly, I feel like during school, it's like I kind of made myself be a morning person because I don't know, I wanted to like be happy around other people, and that's, you know, that's definitely a thing. But I'm definitely a night owl.
I feel like when I was younger, I was definitely a night owl, staying up all the time, but now I'm kind of a morning person.
Yeah. What do you think changed that? Just like getting older?
Yeah, because I'd be ready to go to bed by like 9 p.m.
For real? You're like, when did this happen? I feel so lame.
Yeah, but now I'm kind of both because my son stays up.
Oh, for sure. Like there's that too. Yeah. Well, it kind of depends with kids too, because like kids typically like to get up really early. So it's like, oh, you kind of have to be a morning person. That's going to be so fun. when I have my own kid, it's going to be like, oh, what are you going to fall on? You going to be more like me or more like your father? Because my husband's more like a morning person. I had a thought. Now it's going away. Come back. No.
Yeah, because my son is, I feel like he's a more night owl and his dad's a night owl.
Yeah. And you're just here. Like,
so they're both up late at night. I think chaotic.
And you're snoozing. Oh, I remember that thought now. I can remember sometimes too where it's like not even 8 p.m. yet and I feel tired and I'm like, I do not want to be this tired yet.
No. And then I get moody that I'm tired.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Seriously. 'Cause you're like, I feel tired, so I'm moody, but I'm also moody because I don't want to be tired. It's like my toddler just comes out. Like, I don't want to go to bed. Well, you know, some days are just not the greatest. And I think, like, I know myself, I tend to have a hard time with, like, today's a bad day, but then I'll feel upset that it's a bad day on top of already, like, having a rough day, right? It's like, no, I should make it a good one. When it's like, sometimes we just have bad days. And I think that can be hard to be okay with, you know? Do you ever find yourself having a hard time with that?
Yeah, I feel like you said, sometimes you're having a bad day and then you want to make it a good day. And sometimes that helps, but sometimes it makes it worse because you feel like it's not working and then I get even more upset.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes you just need to have a bad day. If I do have a bad day, I usually just like try to avoid people and just like stay in bed basically.
You just become the hermit. No one talk to me. I've done that plenty of times. Or like that's, do you know the phrase like that? This is my beige flag.
Yeah, I do.
You know that trend? Like my beige flag is like whenever I'm in a bad mood. Like I've gotten a little better at this, especially like I have someone living with me now. I can only avoid him so much, especially because like when I'm in a bad mood, he'll come to me and he'll be like, "Okay, what's wrong?"
Yeah.
As I'm like bundled up and I'm like, "Get away from me." I've gotten better at this, but like expressing like when I'm not feeling great and like reaching out for support, that has been a huge one for me. Like I had that kind of behavior a lot growing up that like when I was in a bad mood, I would just completely close off. Like I would go in my room, I wouldn't talk to anybody. And I'd say that's my beige flag. Just like nothing against you guys. I just am having problems. Don't want people involved, but you know, but it's good to reach out and have support. There's nothing wrong with that, especially when you want to. I mean, I feel like that's another thing too. Sometimes like you want alone time, and that's totally valid too. Like if there's a time where, especially for someone who's like more introverted, which I consider myself to be, like no, I just need my me time. I'll come back to you in a second. I just need a nap or something. Like that's valid too. And it just depends on like what you're needing in the moment. But that's the thing. Like if you're wanting to reach out for support, to try to like, you know, break out of your shell a little bit. It's okay. People are there for you, especially when people express like, hey, I'm here for you.
Yeah, that's definitely been a journey for me too. I feel like when I was younger, I definitely didn't want to like, because I feel like I was burdening people. And I feel like that's still sometimes that I'm burdening people. And well, funny thing is that I don't like telling people like how my feelings sometimes, but I always, when I see somebody upset, I always want them to tell me their feelings because I'm like, I'm here to help you. I'm here to help you, but I won't do like the same thing.
We're twins. I do the same thing.
And then when I was younger, I would blast sad music from my room, but not want to be bothered. So I'm like, I'm sending you guys a message, but I also don't want you guys to ask what's wrong.
Man, I totally feel that. It's like if I could shake my head anymore, my head would fall off. That's how I am, like just hardcore relating to that. Just like very much like I do not want to burden you with my problems, but tell me the tea. I want to know.
Yeah, exactly.
Just like, why are we like this? Well, and as I've, you know, talking about this, as I've like kind of analyzed this in my own life, it came from developing this sort of hyper independence. No, I just got to figure this out myself. Like you said, like not wanting to burden other people. Would you say that's a similar experience for you?
Yeah, I do the same thing. Like I'll figure out myself.
Well, and it's hard because when it comes to analyzing these kinds of things and almost kind of finding, you know, forgiveness within ourselves, right? Except that's something I've, you know, trying to do in my own life. Forgiving myself for certain behaviors or like not using that against me, like even further. It's like you already are struggling with enough. You don't need to like add on more. It's okay.
Yeah. I feel like I'm working on it. But I feel like I used to have like, I always brought up my emotions. And then when somebody asked, like at like my breaking point, they asked, oh, hey, what's wrong? And I just break down in tears and I'm like, it all spills out. And it's like, because I'm learning not to bottle it up as much because bottling it up is way worse. And then, like you said, it's okay to feel these emotions and it's okay to cry because once I cry, then I'm like, oh, I'm okay. I'm like, oh,
I know, for real.
Crying it out.
Oh, dude, the whole like, I kind of talked about this in the first episode too, but like that bottling up, I very much have done the same thing. You know, you just push it all down and then someone and suddenly you like run into the door or someone like asks you if you're okay and you're just like You just break down.
Yeah, it happened a few times.
Oh man. I remember there would be times like people closest to me, if
Mhm.
especially if I was feeling upset, I was like, don't even look into my eyes because one look and I'm going to start crying. Don't you
Yeah.
dare. Well, since we're already kind of talking about it, how easy would you say it is for you to forgive yourself?
That's a little tough one. I would
Right?
say I feel like I never asked myself that question. So I don't
No,
how
totally
easy
fair.
is it to forgive myself? Trying to think of situations where it happened where I was like, okay, it's okay.
Yeah, because it probably depends, right? Because yeah.
I think it depends on the situation, but I would say not easy yet because I feel like I think about all my past mistakes still, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just like always dwell on me. So I'm like, I wouldn't say not easy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and I think that that's so real because when asked that question, I feel like most people would say, like, oh, that's actually not that easy. Especially, like you're saying, depending on
Yeah.
the situation, like trying to really be honest with what's going on, including taking accountability for like maybe some things that have, especially may have hurt other people in your life where you didn't even mean to. But especially if something you have done has hurt yourself, it's like taking accountability for that. And yeah, just being really honest with yourself. I think that's one of the hardest things to do. So, yeah,
I feel like that's a question I'm thinking about now.
yeah, for real. But yeah, like that question, because now I'm asking this question, like I'm also asking myself this, like, how easy
Yeah.
is it for me to forgive myself? And I'd say like it's gotten a lot better through the years,
Mhm.
especially using that technique of like, okay, at its core, where could this be coming from? Like really trying to be open and honest with myself. Like when you get really upset at something, you get really upset at something for no reason, kind of going like, this might be about something else. I know I
Oh,
experienced that a
yeah.
lot.
Yeah. That's good. I'm glad that it has gotten better for you with dealing with it a little bit.
Yeah, and like I said, that's the way I've been able to even like make any progress with that. It's just like, okay, where could this be coming from? Well, going along that, like, the question of like being able to forgive yourself, what would you say is the main way that like helps you with like forgiving yourself?
I think my son will help me forgive myself because
Oh,
I feel like is it I feel like I look at it like how does he view me? Does it really seem like this big a deal, type of thing? And I think
yeah.
that helps me forgive myself because like you really that's not really that bad. You're not really a bad person and it was just a mistake and things like that.
That you're not really a bad person. Oh my gosh. Especially when like it's so funny that we do that to ourselves, especially when we do mean well. It's like you sit down, especially hearing it out loud, you're like, I feel like I'm a bad person. And it's then you analyze
Yeah,
it and you're like, how? The fact that you're worrying about being a bad person kind of shows that you are a good
exactly.
person. But I love that, like thinking about your son and how be like, oh, I am doing much better than I think. And like, maybe I
Yeah.
don't need to hold this over my head. It's one of those things where it's easier said than done, of course. That as well as like, it's deceptively difficult. It's like, oh yeah, just treat yourself kindly or just love yourself. And it's like, it sounds like it should be easy, but it's really not.
No, it's a process.
It's a process and that's okay. I know myself, I get really impatient at times. It's like, no, I should be able to just do this right now. Like
Yeah,
I should be able
same like that.
to love myself or forgive myself or just say something nice about myself to me. Some days are easier than others in that regard. Because that's something that I've analyzed within myself and
Mhm.
observing like the world around me, right? It's like,
Yeah.
man, a lot of people do not feel safe with themselves. And that's really a shame. And I think there's
Is.
really something to be said about trying to encourage that. Hence why, like, part of why I want to do this is because I
Yeah.
want to encourage other people to figure out how they can feel safe with themselves.
I feel like that can be a scary feeling sometimes if you don't feel safe with yourself.
Oh my gosh, the vulnerability it takes is
Mhm.
insane. That effort is so real, but it's so worth it, I think. When you
Yeah,
can,
it is. It is definitely worth it.
yeah.
I feel like what you said earlier about being patient and impatient, being like, oh, I should be self love right away. I feel
Mhm.
like that ties in with a lot of social media. And you watch these people and you see them doing self love and self care days, and you're like, well, I should be at this point. I should be doing this, but you're not realizing that this probably took them a long time to get here. And I feel like that is like, don't compare yourself to other people's journey either.
Yeah, no, that is such an important point when it comes to social media. You really only ever see the like highlights of people's lives, including when people do like self-care days, like you're saying, or whatever, when it seems like they have it all together. It's like they probably don't. At least not as much as you may think. And that's so important to keep in mind because they are just as human as we are. And like you said, it probably took them a lot of time, a lot of effort to get to that point. And it's, you know, this is the thing with life is it's not the destination. It's more like a journey. You learn and grow along the way. And I feel like that aspect of like, oh, there's no like real destination. Like that's different from saying like, oh, having goals, because like that's a great thing to have. Like in a way, those can be perceived as like a destination. Yet at the same time, it's like once you reach that goal, now there's a new one. And it's just like you grow. And then sometimes you may dip a little, and that's normal too. I love the graphics that are like 100% looks different every day. Like sometimes you're up here and then sometimes you just fall down to the pits of hell. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, they're great reminders.
They are. I know. I love posts like that. But yeah, just to remind ourselves that like, hey, this is probably not the whole story. And it's a process for them too, just as it's a process for me, and trying to validate that, you know, because that's another one of those things in life is like validation. It's okay to validate ourselves, especially when we're feeling not so great one day. Like validate that that's normal. That's okay. And even validating, like, yeah, I might just be saying this in the same thing in different words, but you know, validating what's going on is fine and normal. It's okay not to be okay. Because that, I know for me,
that one song, I feel like
exactly. I know for me that has been a process and a half. Just like, oh, I should have a better attitude. Like that whole thing, like, oh yeah, you should have a better attitude, especially, you know, whole other topic in itself, of course, but won't get into it too heavily, but that can really be pushed onto women, especially that like, you should have a better attitude. And it's like, sometimes I just want to be upset. Okay, let me be upset.
Right. Or they're like, oh, at least you're not doing this.
You're like, sure, I guess. But also my feelings are still valid in this specific thing. So let me feel.
Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of learning how it's okay not to be okay, because I remember maybe like even a year and a half ago, I remember I was so upset and I got so like frustrated, and I was guilty and I was mad that I was upset, because I'm like, I don't have time to be upset. I should be looking on how to improve the situation. And then but it felt like there was no way out. So I was just like so upset. And then I was like, I shouldn't be upset. I don't have time to be upset. But now I like to give myself time to be upset.
Yeah, well, even times where like, oh, I don't have time, it's like, even when that is genuinely true, there is something to be said about like, just take like even a minute just to like sit with yourself to be like, I am not okay. And that is fine. And I will do what I have to do, but I will acknowledge that I'm not okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. I feel like there's a lot of power even in just that.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like becoming a mom has helped me so much with so many emotions, because it's like you're raising another human being and you want to teach them about emotions, but first you have to teach yourself really about emotions. Then you have to think about it and you're like, well, how do I process this? And then I tell him all the time, I tell my son a lot, for also boys, or I don't know how it is for other people, but it's like they say it's not okay to cry, but I'm like, it is okay to cry. It's okay to have those feelings. And then I tell him that, so I'm like, well, I should be telling myself that too when I'm upset. So I feel like having a kid has taught me a lot about forgiving myself and also like taking care of myself. And I remember getting this book for my son when he was like, I don't know, maybe one. And I feel like this children's book has helped me so much in situations. It says, "Take a deep breath, little monkey." And it's like this children's book, and the monkey's going through situations where it's like his ice cream falls off or he's frustrated about something. And it's like, take a deep breath. And then I taught my son that. And now when he's upset or frustrated, he takes a deep breath. And now we're learning to take a deep breath too when we're frustrated or sad or mad. And I'm like, this children's book has helped me so much throughout like emotions and anxiety and like spiraling.
You're like, wow, this has helped me too. That's so funny.
Yeah.
That's so true though. Just like the simplest, when it's put in really like simple ways almost, it can, well, you know, depending on our mood, it can either help us or it can like frustrate us more. It's like, oh, this is both helpful, but it's also like, oh, I feel dumb for not like understanding this simple thing. Especially when you analyze where you've come from, like where you've learned these behaviors. That's the thing, like when we're mean to ourselves, like that's a learned behavior. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because like for me, I like to think that at our core, people are generally good. And that includes the ability to love ourselves, that we are all capable of that. And it just, our experience in life can really like heavily influence that, whether good or bad, right? Whether helpful or not helpful in that direction. And so I think that's so great that, and good job to you for teaching your son that, because that's really cool to hear that he's like, okay, like when I'm upset, take a deep breath. Because like, it's the thing, like it's so simple and yet it works so well. And it's not going to fix all of our problems. Like that's not the point of it. It's just to help. You know, what is a mental health like accomplishment that you are most proud of?
I'm really proud of learning to put myself first and saying no or cutting off people who are not good for my mental health. I feel like that because I feel like growing up and sometimes still that I am a people pleaser. So I always be like, yes, or yes, I'll do this for you. Not like not caring how I feel necessarily, but I'm like, it doesn't matter because it's all about I want to make them feel good. So I feel like I have been putting myself first a lot and learning how to say no to situations that I don't feel comfortable with or is not good for my emotional health.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That is so, you know, funny enough, like it's kind of cool to be able to hear like someone else go through like people pleasing behavior. Cause I'm like, me too. Wow. We're not alone. Cause that is something to be proud of. And like, I admire that because I'm going through that myself. Like I am also trying to figure out how to even do that because all of my life, I really just wanted to, that intention of like, I want to make other people happy. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. But it can so easily go into the like completely disregarding yourself. And it's like, you don't need to do that. We don't need to do that. We should look after ourselves too. Well, and you know, learning how to say no, how to set boundaries. That's really awesome to hear that, you know, you've made some progress on that you're proud of. And that can be such a hard thing. Like when you come from people pleasing, because I very much feel that. And again, kind of like thinking about like, how can we in a way forgive that behavior within ourselves? I don't know if you've, you know, really thought about that within your journey. But I've thought about that a lot. Like I've really like self-sabotaged a lot. And that's okay because you know, I didn't have the tools to be able to say no, to set boundaries. And that's okay. Because I think that's just one of the number one things that's like what should be the foundation is almost that level of forgiveness of like, I didn't know better and that's okay. But now I do. Because like we can't change we can't change the past. And in my opinion, nor should we be able to. I feel like there's a lot of, when you look back on the past on something like you regret, or, you know, when it comes to like people pleasing, it's like, oh, I feel like I shouldn't have done that, or just anything that you feel regretful on. It's like, oh, but it's taught me how to be how I want to be today, or what I'm trying to be today.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I feel like it's a hard thing to like try to let go of, like, oh, I wish I could change this. But then on the other side, it's like, oh, this was a lesson. Basically, it led me to this part.
Yeah, another one of those things, easier said than done to like really see those things as a positive. But I very much try to do that. That like, even when something was so negative or hurtful, or you know, in some way, like really impactful in a negative way, it's like, yeah, that really sucked, but it taught me how to change things for hopefully the better, right? You said the words like let go. I know that's a thought I've had, like, why can't I let go of this? And I think at some level, either when it comes to other people or honestly, most of the time myself, like there is something I'm not forgiving. And I think even within that, it's important to remember, like, whether you're forgiving yourself or other people, that doesn't mean letting the behavior like continue. Again, another like nuance, like we can forgive, but also not let it happen again, or do our best to not let it happen again. Because sometimes it'll slip through, of course, because that's the human experience. That's totally normal. But there tends to be a misconception of like forgiveness means that like, oh, it doesn't matter that happened, or like, you know, that you'll let it happen again. But like, no, forgiveness doesn't mean that the past thing or the thing that just happened like doesn't matter. It just means that we are choosing to not allow it to have so much power over us anymore. And we can just free ourselves from the burden of that thing, you know?
Yeah, that hearing you say that is like, that's helping me, because I feel like I have thought that like forgiving it means that it was okay, that it doesn't matter. But then, like you said, it's more helping you, so it's not a burden to you. So I'm gonna keep that in mind, because that's really, like you said, powerful.
Yay! That's the cool thing about these two, is like that, like we think about these kinds of things, but then hearing it said, it kind of like it hits a little different, you know?
Yeah.
And then even within ourselves, like being able to forgive yourself for maybe some things you've done that have hurt you, you know, because that's totally a real thing too, that like sometimes we do things that aren't the best for ourselves either.
With the whole setting boundaries, it's like it gets to a point where you're like viewing how, depending on the situation, I shouldn't be treated this way, or you shouldn't be treating yourself this way. I feel like that's what I think about a lot too.
Yeah. And then thinking that and then putting into practice to do something different can be so hard. But even trying, we could stand to give ourselves a little more credit on like, you know what, I'm trying to, and that can make all the difference. Kind of like what I said before, that we worry about like if we're being good people or not. It's like that in itself, it's like it shows that you care and that you're trying, and that's still something. Like that's not nothing. In fact, that's still very impactful, you know? That shows that like you kind of like when another person hurts us, or maybe we hurt them, hopefully there could be a conversation of like, hey, this wasn't okay. And then you kind of go, oops, sorry, I'll do better next time. And then you actually do better, or actually they do better. It's like that in itself is so like, it's either you or they, depending on who did the hurting, right? Shows that there is genuine love there. Because it's like, oh, I didn't mean for that to happen. I will do better. And then sticking to it. Like that consistency is so important within relationships, not only with other people, but again, within ourselves. Because I think it could be really easy almost to talk about that process with other people, but then trying to do that inwardly, it's kind of like, wait, how do I do that? Wait, what do you mean I have to forgive myself? Wait, what?
Yeah.
Sometimes we hurt ourselves too. In fact, like when it comes to people pleasing, we actually hurt ourselves quite a bit. And it takes a lot of effort to be like, no, I'm going to put myself first. Because that needs to be the foundation of being able to be able to like actually take care of other people, is like being able to take care of ourselves. The hypocrisy.
Like you said, it's trying is, I feel like, is actually one of the first steps of improving. Trying and then like taking action, saying it's okay. It's like, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings, or either to yourself or somebody else. And then your actions is like what you do next, and keep doing it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and even like when you fall short, because, you know, not to say it in a fatalistic way, but like, you know, we will mess up, because that is the human condition. Like we are, is the word fallible? Like we're not infallible. Fallible, I think so. That like there will be times where we will mess up, and not trying to make that like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? That like trying to like I will mess up. It's like, I guess from a more like realistic standpoint, at least I try to think of it that way, that it's like, you know, I will probably mess up still, but that doesn't change, that doesn't take away from the effort and the progress, you know? And that is so true with like anything we do, whether it comes to forgiveness or trying to like do a new hobby or really anything. It's like, there's going to be times where you fall short, and there is nothing wrong with that, especially if you have earnest effort. Like your intention like really matters a lot, I think. Well, and when it comes to like personal growth, you can only grow as much as you allow yourself to.
Yes, that's
like,
true.
Other people can only like tell you what to do, or like other people can only do so much, and absolutely have support where you need and can and want to have. But at some point you do need to support yourself too. And
Yeah.
And I argue like you need to support yourself the most because yeah, there's only so much other people can do for you.
Yeah.
That can be hard. That's how it goes though. And and that's one of the most unifying things is we all struggle with that, I think. Like that is a very universal experience. Yeah. Because we want community. That's the thing with like how humans work. We're very social beings, and that's good. Absolutely have that community, that support. But also, what can you do to help yourself?
And I feel like with talking about like making mistakes, that's what humans do. I feel like there's this one quote. I don't know how it goes exactly, but it was like something about the point of like having a pencil and a eraser being on top of it is like it's for like the mistakes, and then you just kind of learn and get better and grow with it. I'm not sure exactly how it went, but hope that kind of made sense.
Yeah, I think so. Like when you make mistakes, as I've been trying to practice with myself, like almost trying to take the morality over it.
Yeah.
Or out of it. I don't know why I said over it. Yeah, trying to take the morality out of it where it's like, I am not a bad person because I messed up. Especially if your intention is good. I am not inherently bad because I've fallen short. I think that is something that can be weirdly difficult to remember sometimes when we mess up. Like, especially for people pleasers, it's like, no, I just suck. I'm the worst person ever. It's like, no, you're not. You're okay. Well, and that leads into this question that I'm very like fascinated by, and I want to see what people think. I like to think that there's good in most people, right? And that mental health can like largely impact that. Do you like generally agree with that, or do you think some people are just like bad? Like, do you think there is just genuinely some like bad people? I'm very curious to see what people think about this.
I feel like they are generally bad people. Yes, I feel like especially because I'm maybe too much always looking at the news and stories, and I see all this stuff, and it's so much negative, which also impacts my mental health a lot. I feel like I need to take a step back from consuming so much news. But I generally do feel like some people are just generally bad because you think and you're like, how could you do that type of thing?
Yeah, well, I myself, I have a hard time with this question. That's part of why I'm curious to ask people, is because like I really want to believe that like most people, with some very few exceptions, are good. I feel like it kind of depends on my perspective, like depending on how much like news I consume, that are especially bad, or stories or whatever of like people just being just the most degenerate, right?
Yeah.
And it's like maybe some people are just bad, and because like I don't know the answer, and that's why I am curious, because it's like maybe some people are just bad. Because sometimes you see certain things like in the news or something, or you just like you can't, no matter how much they may be like hurting internally, because that's another thing too. I think that a lot of people, even if they're doing something bad, it may be due to poor mental health, but I also don't want that to be an excuse, because maybe some people are just bad, which stinks if that's true,
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah. Who knows, really? Like I said, I like to think that when people do bad behavior, at times it may just be due to poor mental health, and hence why it's good to seek mental health. And I like to think a lot more people can reach the goodness within them if they took care of themselves in that regard.
Yeah.
But at the same time, might just be bad people. I don't know.
That is a very like interesting question,
right.
And I feel like I would be curious about what others say too, because like I want people to be good, but sometimes I just feel like sometimes it seems like there's no good in some people. Sometimes it is good people, and like sometimes intentions like bad, but they mean good. But I'm like, that's an interesting question. I would be curious to see how other people respond to that too.
Yeah, me too. That's why want to ask people, because it's like you can argue either way, really. I think because it may be possible that they don't have the resources, or either they physically don't have the resources, or choosing not to access the resources, because that's another part of it too, that like trying to come from an empathic point of view, it's like we can do that, but at the same time, if they are actively still choosing to do that regardless of the resources that are open to them, then that's on them. you know?
Yeah, it definitely is. I feel like I feel like it just depends on the situation too, because I feel like I have known people who have not done the greatest things, but they have gotten help and they are doing better. So I
Yeah.
feel like it just depends on the situation, and it definitely does. It has to be them wanting to help themselves too.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, everyone has the responsibility for themselves. If they want to be good, they need to do the work to be good.
Yeah.
As much as we try to encourage certain people to be good, at some point they may not choose to. You know, I like what you said about, you know, there's people that you know that they did some bad things, but they seem to be trying to be better. And I think that's wonderful. And honestly, for the most part, I really like love to advocate for that, you know, hence what I'm wanting to do here. Like people can learn to be better. And, you know, I think there's a lot to be said about continuing to improve the infrastructure to support them.
Yeah.
Because like any other human being, they shouldn't just be cast aside, you know? But I love things like that, like people in your life, people in my life too. It's like, hey, they haven't done the best things, but they have proven that they want to be better. And so I will always advocate for that. And especially people who want to be better and they're actively doing the work to do so. It's like all the more reason to forgive. And like we said, forgiveness doesn't mean allowing the behavior to happen anymore. In fact, like actively discouraging that behavior and encouraging better. It very much takes effort, but that effort is very much worth it. Yeah, I just wanted to like talk a little bit more about that because I thought that was really cool. So we'll wrap up with, what is your favorite piece of mental health advice?
I would say I'm trying to figure out how to word it.
No worries. You've been seeing me struggle this whole time, like trying to put things into words. You're right there with you.
I would say it's depending on the situation or how hard it is to improve your mental health. I feel like taking time for yourself or taking time to do something you love is really important to improve your mental health. But also, I've known people who feel like they never have the time to take time for themselves. So I would say, even if it's like a minute of taking time for yourself or a minute of doing whatever you like doing, reading, watching a show, and then eventually it can go to 1 minute to 5 minutes to like 30 minutes and then so on, and just practice doing that, because some people feel like they don't have the time or they never find the time to have time for their mental health. But I would say like make it a thing every day to give yourself even a few minutes, and then eventually it will grow on, and then that will help.
I like that because one of those like deceptively difficult things that it can be hard to start, especially if you've gone so long just kind of rolling with the punches. That can genuinely be really difficult to figure out, how to even begin. So I like that, like trying to build on something small. Like I think we very easily discount the small things. Like if it comes to like you said, like just taking a minute to just breathe or do something you like, or to be like, okay, I'm gonna do this for a little bit, something that just makes you happy. Like try not to overthink it. Just like, what's something that makes you happy? Do that thing for a little bit and then try to build the next day. Oh, and then even if you like skip it on some days or something, like it's okay. Try it again tomorrow.
Okay.
Try it again. Oh man, I know that's something for me. Like that whole idea of I'm unsatisfied with how this thing went, but I can try again. And sometimes I don't want to accept that. Like sometimes I'm like unsatisfied with even that, but I still try to tell. Like I try to tell myself anyway, just like, this is frustrating. That's okay. We can try again like tomorrow, or try again in a few minutes, no matter what it is. I think one of my favorite things is tomorrow is always a new day. Because it's true. Like, if you experience a day where it's like everything went wrong, everything's horrible, everything sucks. First of all, don't invalidate that feeling, because it's okay and normal to feel that way. And then tomorrow's a fresh day. You can try again. I know sometimes I don't want to accept that, but I still try to anyway. And that's what matters.
That's what matters.
Oh. Hello.
Hi. Sorry about that.
No worries. I was just thinking, like, thanks for bearing with me. This ended up being like almost twice as long as I said it would. So, jeez.
It hasn't even felt that long, honestly. It felt so casual just talking.
I know, me too. Oh, and that's how I wanted this to be. So,
yeah,
yay. I'm glad that also feels that way to you because it's exactly how I want it to be. Just very conversational, very, very chill. Just talking about our experiences and our thoughts on mental health, you know? Well, we kind of talked about it, but I was just thinking, like, you know, how we interact with other people in the world. Do you think the world can, like, become better with, like, more mental health aid, especially if people, like, chose to, like, access it and everything?
Yeah, I say yeah, definitely, and I feel like that's a big positive thing. Like, I would want it to happen, and I definitely think it could happen. With, like, if people are choosing to get help, and since I have known and seen some people who have gotten help, it does give me hope. Like, you know, people can get better, and the world can get in a better place with, like, um, more mental health places, or just people reaching out for help as well.
Yeah. Well, even just, yeah, people reaching out, help within, like, their own community.
Yeah.
Like, even that in itself, I think can help a lot. Because I think, well, especially since, like, COVID and stuff, it's like, people have been really, like, more closed off. Like, people have been experiencing less community. You know, everyone has their own journey with that. I that's my hope for everybody, is to be able to, like, reach out. You know, I've been trying to do that myself because it's another one of those beige flags. I tend to kind of just be at home, a little closed off sometimes.
That's me too.
We're doing our best. So that's something I'm trying to do. Just, like, try to, like, reach out to people more. Because I'll realize, like, a month has gone by and, like, I haven't talked to, like, one of my siblings. I'm like, ooh, hello, let's chat. what's been going on? And it's, like, you know, kind of unintentional, but also just like, ooh, that's something that just slips off my radar sometimes. But yeah, like, that's like a smaller example of that. Like, community is so good, and it's good for us to reach out, especially when we're struggling, as hard as it may feel, you know.
Yeah.
For those of us who tend to kind of close off when we're struggling, if you're feeling the desire to reach out, go for it, you know, because it's good. It's good to reach out to people.
I feel like even if they're not technically reaching out, I feel like social media also, I mean, social media can be bad for mental health, but also can be good for mental health, because I feel like maybe some people don't feel comfortable reaching out to someone they're around. And I feel like social media has grown so much, and people are so open on there that people can just, like, watch other people or listen to other people. And that has helped them so much. And because I feel like, personally, being on social media and finding so many internet friends like you and my community has helped my mental health extremely, like, so much. So I feel like social media could also be a community itself if you don't have, like, a community personally, like, around you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a double-edged sword, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it can be detrimental, but it can also be so helpful.
Yeah.
You know, like, genuinely finding, like, new friends like you. Like, that's how I feel about Jasmine too.
Yeah.
Jayla Rose. Well, she's more like, because she's kind of taking a break from that, but, you know, Jasmine. And
she's everything.
Yeah, because it's like, without, you know, I think, like, TikTok primarily, because that's kind of where I met, like, all you guys. Like, I wouldn't have known you without that, which is so crazy to think about. Social media is very much like a tool. Like, it can be, it's what you make of it. And that's so true with most, like, you know, man-made things. It's like, it inherently isn't a bad thing. It's what people do with it. So I agree that even though social media, it can be bad for mental health, but it can also be incredible for mental health, whether, like, reaching out, finding connection with people, or just, like, viewing content that is, like, mental health related, or just in general. Like, I like to watch content that just, like, makes me laugh, right? I like to make content that just, like, hopefully just makes people smile, right? Just be goofball. Because sometimes that is just all you need too. Like, sometimes you just need a good laugh, and then you feel so much better. Well, especially when you follow people who are professionals, because there's more of that too. People who are professionals and they're posting, like, mental health related content. I know I've gained a lot of insight from that as well. Especially if you can't afford, like, therapy, especially like here in America, it's a trash fire. So
expensive.
everything's expensive. No one can afford anything. It's great. No. Love it here. Yeah, when you can't afford to get like traditional like therapy services or things like that, like you can access things online and learn so many things. So there's a lot of good in it too. Especially like I'm actively making like mental health content. And obviously I'm not a professional or anything, but it's just like being able to talk just like openly about like experiences and like advice, things like that, just to hopefully help people just feel a little more like seen and heard, and like that their experience is normal, especially like people pleasing or just in life, you know, how mental health can really impact how you see the world and how you see yourself. And to answer that question myself, I really do think that the world can be better if people take care of themselves mentally, whether that's by going to therapy or just by like being open to different kinds of content online that is mental health conscious. And be open to that experience and to be open to like, hey, I'm going to try to be a safe space within myself. I'm going to try to be the best version of myself that I can. Because that, like, honestly, it does take a lot of bravery. I think it takes a lot of bravery to, bravery to be vulnerable. Being vulnerable is one of the hardest things to do, I think. And so I applaud anyone who is willing and able to like get there, because it's hard.
It is. It's very hard. And I feel like being vulnerable helps them. And if you're doing it online, it also helps others. Like this talk right now, I'm sure it'll help other people because it has helped me. So I feel like being open, it's hard, but it also helps a lot.
Well, same here. Like hearing someone else also experience like people pleasing. It's like, we can do this. You know,
I'm not alone.
I'm not alone. Exactly. You know, it's just even just that, like hearing that like an experience is normal and that it's just that validation, you know?
Yeah.
That we are in this together and it's okay to struggle. And just the more we can destigmatize it, right? The more everyone can be open to the fact that mental health is a thing. And then whether you struggle with it just on a more like typical basis, or if you have a mental illness or disorder, that like that's okay too, that like that's not your fault. The option to have mental health services and medications, all of that, there is nothing to be ashamed of there. Especially when it comes to medication. I remember I heard one time, I really liked it, that for a lot of people, there's something missing in your brain that the medication helps fill in. And so it's like you know, your brain in itself can't like produce that the dopamine or the serotonin, whatever, you know, that it just can't naturally do it by itself. And so taking the medication just helps it helps fill in that empty space in your brain. And that's a good thing. But yeah, it's funny how just that in itself, like hearing that it's okay to struggle, because I know like that in itself does wonders for me, and I hope that does something for people who are watching. And because like we said, with social media, it's like even with just kind of just casual chats like this, because you know we're not mental health professionals, but it's like we are human beings who have experienced our own mental health struggles, and I think there's a lot of power in just talking about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So that is finally all I have. Thanks for sticking around for so long, even though it took much longer.
I loved it. I love talking with you.
Yeah, I love talking with you too. That was really awesome. Yeah. Do you want to plug your socials to the audience?
Sure. I have TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram, and they're all at Journey of Love with 2 E's.
Yeah, so go check her out, everybody. She's cool.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on today. I agree. I loved this. This was so cool.
Yeah, it was great. It was fun. It was comforting. It was helpful. I loved it.
I loved it too. Thank you so much. Because this is exactly like what I'm looking for with like chats like this. It's just like, what has been our experience? What can we offer like both to like each other and also to the audience? Like, let's just all share our thoughts. Yeah. In a safe space, you know, that it's okay to struggle. It's okay to have mental health. Yeah. You know, struggles, totally normal, totally okay. And, you know, there's so much power in just acknowledging what's going on. Because I know that's made a huge impact in my life by just acknowledging that it exists and that it's fine that it exists.
Yeah. Struggling is definitely hard and it can be frustrating, but for some reason, hearing the words "it's okay to struggle" is comforting because, like, again, you don't feel alone. You don't feel like, you know, it's okay. It kind of like everybody's at their own pace, and sometimes you see somebody, like, you know, doing better than you necessarily, and you're like, oh, dang, I'm behind. But then you hear somebody else talking to you, like talking to each other about being people pleasers and things like that. You're like, oh, well, I'm not alone. It's okay, and we'll work through it.
Well, even the very people that you think are like, oh, they're doing so much better, and then you talk to them and you're like, oh, you're not doing much better than I thought you were.
No.
Like, we're actually doing similar in terms of how we're doing. And that, like, it's not like you want them to be struggling, but it's like comforting in a way. Yeah, it's comforting in a way because it's like, oh, we are both human beings going through life, and sometimes it's not so fun, and that's fine. And even like you said, feeling frustrated by the fact that we're struggling, like that in itself is also valid to feel.
Yeah.
And it, like, I know for myself, it's definitely been a process, but has been worth it to practice this, to just like, instead of going on a spiral, to instead be like, you know, I'm feeling pretty terrible today. And there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes you just feel bad, because then the next day, maybe you feel fine. And it's like, yeah, that's how it goes. Full circle back to what you said about, like, you know, today's a good day and maybe tomorrow is the same. Maybe it's not. And it's just as valid as it is today.
Yep. Yeah.
My last two brain cells, like, don't mess up, Amanda. It's fine.
Don't take my money.
No, I'm poor.